First Contact and Revelation. Grand Archon Seleth stood on the observation deck of the Stellar Harmony, the pride of the Teslarian fleet. The massive vessel's crystalline hull gleamed in the light of the binary star system they had chosen for this historic meeting. Behind her, a dozen attendants and scientists whispered excitedly, their translucent skin pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that reflected their anticipation. "They approach, Grand Archon," announced First Observer Talus, his tendrils waving slightly as he monitored the sensor readings. "A single vessel, as agreed. Primitive propulsion systems, minimal energy signatures." Seleth nodded, her own skin glowing with the calming blue patterns of a leader projecting confidence. The Teslarians had spent 10 cycles debating whether to initiate contact with the curious Bictal species from the spiral arm's edge. Humanity, they called themselves, primitive in many ways, but showing remarkable adaptability and technological growth despite their youth. "Their vessel appears to be powered by simple fusion reactions," noted Science Elder Merithi with a hint of disappointment. "Their hull is primarily composed of titanium alloys and carbon composites, rudimentary by our standards." "Remember, Elder," Seleth cautioned, "they have only achieved faster-than-light travel within the last century. We had millennia to perfect our technologies." The human ship came into visual range, a boxy, inelegant design with none of the sweeping curves and crystalline transparency that characterized Teslarian aesthetics. Its hull was dark and angular, with visible weapon ports that seemed oddly prominent for a diplomatic vessel. The Teslarians had long since evolved beyond the need for prominent weaponry, their defensive systems seamlessly integrated into their ship's organic architecture. "Initiating communication," announced Communication Specialist Aerith. The main view screen illuminated, revealing a human female with dark skin and close-cropped hair, wearing what appeared to be a formal uniform adorned with various symbolic pins and patches. "Greetings, representatives of the Teslarian Confederation. I am Captain Maya Chen of the United Earth Alliance vessel Diplomatic Envoy. We come in peace and friendship, eager to establish relations between our civilizations." Seleth stepped forward, her skin pulsing with the formal greeting patterns. "Captain Chen, I am Grand Archon Seleth of the Teslarian Confederation. We welcome you to the Twin System and look forward to cultural and scientific exchange." The meeting proceeded cordially. The humans were respectful, curious, and seemed genuinely interested in peaceful relations. They shared information about their home system, their governance structures, and their technological capabilities, all of which confirmed the Teslarians' assessment that humanity was a promising but underdeveloped species. Over the next several solar cycles, diplomatic relations flourished. Trading outposts were established in neutral systems, and cultural exchanges began. The Teslarians shared some of their more basic technological insights, sustainable energy systems, medical techniques, and agricultural methods, while the humans offered their unique art forms, philosophies, and culinary traditions. What the humans didn't share, and what the Teslarians didn't think to ask about, was the true extent of their military capabilities. 3 cycles after first contact, Grand Archon Seleth was awakened from her regeneration cycle by an urgent alert. The colony world of New Lumina, on the outer edge of Teslarian space, had sent a desperate distress signal before all communications abruptly ceased. "What information do we have?" Seleth demanded as she entered the emergency council chamber aboard the Stellar Harmony. Defense Coordinator Varix's skin pulsed with alarming red patterns. "The Void Swarm has returned, Grand Archon." After nearly 500 cycles of silence, a collective shudder passed through the council. The Void Swarm, a hive mind species of ravenous, insectoid predators, had nearly destroyed Teslarian civilization centuries ago. Only the development of specific harmonic disruption fields had driven them back into the depths of uncharted space. "How many colony citizens were on New Lumina?" Seleth asked, dreading the answer. "Nearly 300,000, replied Population Coordinator Zuri, her skin dim with grief. "And our nearest defense fleet is 4 days from their position." The Void Swarm will not leave survivors, Varric said grimly, and they will use the biomass to spawn more of their kind before moving to the next colony. Selith closed her eyes, feeling the weight of leadership heavy upon her. Alert all nearby systems. Begin evacuation protocols for the neighboring colonies. Deploy the defense fleets to establish a containment perimeter. Grand Archon. Communications specialist Aerith interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from a human diplomatic vessel in the neighboring Helios system. They're offering assistance. Selith frowned. What assistance could they possibly offer against the Void Swarm? Their vessels are barely armed. They say they detected unusual energy signatures and biological markers consistent with a hostile species. They're requesting permission to send support vessels. We have no time for this, Defense Coordinator Varric objected. Human curiosity is admirable, but... He was interrupted by another alert. Grand Archon, sensors detect multiple vessels emerging from faster-than-light travel near the Helios relay point, reported First Observer Talus, confusion evident in his voice. They're human vessels, but these are not like the diplomatic ships we've encountered. The view screen activated, showing a formation of 7 vessels that bore only a passing resemblance to the human ships the Teslarians had previously seen. These ships were massive, nearly twice the size of their diplomatic counterparts, with reinforced hulls covered in weapon emplacements. Their silhouettes were predatory, designed to intimidate as much as to function. A communication channel opened, revealing the stern-faced human male with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. Teslarian Command. This is Admiral Victor Karev of the United Earth Alliance 7th Fleet. We've detected scourge bioforms in your colony sector, what you call the Void Swarm. We've encountered this species before in another sector. Request permission to render assistance and coordinate defensive measures. Selith and her council stared in shock. These were not the same humans they had been dealing with for the past 3 cycles. These were warriors. Admiral Karev. Selith finally responded. We appreciate your offer, but the Void Swarm is unlike anything you have encountered. Our defense fleets are specially equipped to. With respect, Grand Archon, Admiral Karev interrupted. We've studied the energy patterns from the swarm's attack. They match what we call the Scourge, a hive-mind predator species we've been fighting on our outer colonies for the past 15 Earth years. We have effective countermeasures. Before Selith could respond, First Observer Talus cried out in alarm. Grand Archon, 5 Void Swarm breeder ships have just emerged at the edge of the new Lumina system. On a secondary view screen, the Teslarians watched in horror as the unmistakable organic vessels of the Void Swarm appeared. Living ships that resembled massive insects, pulsing with malevolent energy, already launching smaller hunter craft toward the defenseless colony. We cannot reach them in time, Defense Coordinator Varric said, his skin pale with despair. But we can, Admiral Karev stated firmly. Grand Archon, unless you object, we're moving to engage. Selith hesitated only a moment. Proceed, Admiral. We will dispatch our defense fleet to support you. The human ships accelerated with surprising speed, their engines flaring blue-white against the void. The Teslarian Council watched in stunned silence as the 7 human vessels formed a perfect defensive formation, moving with a precision that spoke of extensive combat experience. How are they generating such power? Murmured Science Elder Merithi, studying the energy readings from the human ships. Their engines are outputting at least 3 times what our initial scans suggested their technology was capable of. They concealed their true capabilities, Defense Coordinator Varric realized. But why? A species doesn't survive long in the void by revealing all its strengths at first meeting, remarked Elder Counselor Turin, the oldest member of the council. Perhaps they're wiser than we thought. The view screen showed the human ships engaging the Void Swarm. What happened next left the watching Teslarians speechless. The lead human ship, identified as the UEA Thermopylae, fired what appeared to be a concentrated pulse of energy that, upon impact with the nearest swarm breeder ship, caused the massive organic vessel to convulse violently before rupturing from within. "Impossible," whispered Varix. Their weapons penetrated the swarm's adaptive shielding. The other human ships launched swarms of smaller craft, fighters, the humans called them, that moved with incredible agility, targeting the hunter craft with surgical precision. Meanwhile, the larger human vessels positioned themselves between the void swarm and the colony, their weapon systems firing in coordinated patterns that suggested years of tactical refinement. "Grand Archon," announced Communication Specialist Aerith. "We're receiving a transmission from Admiral Karif." The Admiral's face appeared on screen, now wearing a specialized helmet with holographic displays visible around his eyes. "Teslarian Command, we've engaged the swarm's advance forces, but our scans show 3 more breeder ships approaching from the system's edge. We request any intelligence you can provide on void swarm behavioral patterns and weaknesses." Selith nodded to Science Elder Merithi, who quickly began transmitting the accumulated knowledge of centuries of Teslarian research on their ancient enemy. "Admiral, may I ask how your weapons are penetrating their adaptive shielding? Our own sonic disruption technology requires precise calibration too." "Phase-shifted quantum disruptors," Admiral Karif replied tersely. "They target the swarm's neural network frequency. Similar principle to your sonic technology, but more efficient against their evolved defenses." Merithi's skin pulsed with shock. But that would require intimate knowledge of the swarm's biological structure at the quantum level. "We've had 15 years of war to figure it out," the Admiral responded grimly. "Necessity drives innovation." As the battle continued, it became increasingly clear that the humans weren't just fighting. They were executing a carefully choreographed strategy developed specifically to combat the void swarm. Their ships moved with perfect coordination, covering each other's vulnerabilities and maximizing offensive capabilities. "They fight as though they've done this 100 times, observed Defense Coordinator Varix, a new respect in his voice. "Perhaps they have," replied Elder Counselor Torin quietly, "just not against the void swarm." The implication hung heavy in the air. If the humans could develop weapons this effective against a species they'd only encountered recently, what else might they be capable of? And if they had fought wars before, who had they fought? Admiral Karif's voice interrupted their thoughts. "Grand Archon, we opened a gap in the swarm formation. If you have any civilian ships that need evacuation, now's the time. We can hold this position for approximately 40 minutes before the next wave arrives." Selith exchanged glances with her council. In that moment, their perception of humanity fundamentally changed. These weren't the simple, underdeveloped beings they had initially judged them to be. These were battle-hardened warriors who had chosen to present only their peaceful face during first contact. "Begin immediate evacuation procedures," Selith commanded, "and prepare our defense fleet to coordinate with Admiral Karif's forces when they arrive." As the Teslarian evacuation ships launched toward the colony, Selith continued to watch the human vessels engage the void swarm with devastating effectiveness. A disturbing thought occurred to her. If the humans had concealed their military capabilities, what else might they be hiding? And perhaps more importantly, what had shaped them into such formidable warriors in the first place? Part 2. Alliance Forged in Battle. Commander Ilara Reed of the UEA Thermopyla moved through the ship's Combat Information Center with practiced efficiency, her augmented reality interface highlighting tactical updates as they streamed in from the fleet's distributed sensor network. The battle against the Void Swarm, or the Scourge as humanity had designated them, was proceeding according to standard containment protocols, but she wasn't satisfied with merely containing them. "Lieutenant Zhang, recalibrate the quantum disruptors to focus on the third breeder ship's central ganglion. Their adaptation algorithms are shifting to compensate for our attack pattern." "Aye, Commander," replied the weapons officer, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Recalibration complete. Firing solution in 3, 2, 1. On the main view screen, A concentrated beam of energy lanced out from the thermopyla, striking the massive organic vessel precisely where its neural control cluster would be located. The breeder ship convulsed violently, its biological weapons boards firing randomly as its hive mind control faltered. Direct hit on central nervous system, reported Zhang. Breeder ship is experiencing cascading neural failure. Excellent. Target the hunter craft while they're disorganized, Ilara ordered, turning her attention to the communication station. Any word from the Teslarian Defense Fleet? Communications Officer Patel nodded. They're 3 hours out, Commander. The evacuation ships have successfully retrieved approximately 60% of the colonists. Admiral Carib's voice came through her neural link. Commander Reed, status report. We've neutralized 3 breeder ships and approximately 70% of their hunter craft. Admiral, the colony evacuation is proceeding, but our sensors detect a second wave approaching. At least 7 more breeder ships, larger than the first group. The Teslarians need to understand what they're dealing with, both regarding the swarm and regarding us, Commander. Their Grand Archon seems to think we've been less than forthcoming about our military capabilities. We followed first contact protocols to the letter, Ilara objected. Diplomatic vessels only, minimal weapons signatures, non-threatening posture. And now they've seen what's behind the diplomatic facade, Karev replied. Better they learn about us while we're fighting alongside them rather than against them. Prepare to receive their shuttle. Karev out. Within 20 minutes, Defense Coordinator Verix was escorted onto the Thermopyla's Combat Information Center. The tall, slender alien with translucent skin that pulsed with complex patterns of light looked distinctly out of place among the battle-focused human crew. Defense Coordinator, welcome aboard the Thermopyla, Ilara greeted him formally. I'm Commander Reed, Executive Officer. I apologize that we can't offer a more thorough tour, but as you can see, we're somewhat occupied. Verix's skin rippled with patterns that his translator interpreted as acknowledging respect. Thank you, Commander. I understand the circumstances. I must say, your vessel is not what we expected based on our previous interactions with human ships. The diplomatic envoy serves a different purpose, Ilara replied diplomatically. This is a Titan-class battlecruiser designed specifically for deep space combat operations. Before Verix could respond, the tactical officer called out, Commander, second wave of swarm vessels entering weapons range. New behavior pattern detected. They're adapting to our disruptor frequency. Ilara immediately refocused. Initiate frequency rotation protocols. All weapons shift to pattern Omega-6. Fighter squadrons fall back to defensive perimeter. Verix watched in fascination as the human crew responded with practiced precision, each member performing complex tasks with minimal verbal communication. Many seemed to be using neural interfaces similar to the commanders, sharing tactical information faster than verbal orders could convey. Your crew operates with remarkable efficiency, Verix observed. They move as though they share a hive mind, not unlike the Void Swarm. Not a hive mind, Ilara corrected, her attention still focused on the tactical displays. Just extensive training and neural networking. We maintain our individuality. It's actually our greatest strength against enemies like the Swarm. A massive impact rocked the ship. Direct hit on forward shields, reported the defense systems operator. Shield integrity at 82% and holding. Return fire, full spread, Ilara commanded. Target their propulsion clusters. Verix studied the human commander with increasing interest. You fought the Void Swarm before, you said, for 15 of your Earth years. The Scourge, yes, Ilara confirmed, using the human designation. They appeared in our outer colonies without warning. Nearly wiped out 3 settlement worlds before we developed effective countermeasures. Yet you continued to expand into space despite this threat. Ilara gave him a grim smile. Humanity has never been good at backing down from a challenge, coordinator, or a fight. Another impact shook the ship. Commander, called out the sensor operator. The largest breeder ship is deploying something new. Biomechanical constructs, approximately 3 meters in length. They're attaching to our hull. Boarding parties, Ilara realized. Security teams to all affected sectors. Activate internal defense systems. She turned to Verix, her expression deadly serious. Coordinator, I need to get you to a secure location. These boarding constructs contain swarm warriors. They'll attempt to capture the ship and use our biomass to spawn more of their kind. Verix's skin paled to an almost translucent white. You've encountered these before as well. Third year of the war, Ilara confirmed grimly. We lost 3 ships before we understood their tactics. She tapped her neural interface. Lieutenant Park, escort the coordinator to the secure command bunker. A heavily armored soldier appeared at the doorway. This way, sir. As they moved through the ship's corridors, Verix observed human crew members arming themselves with surprisingly advanced weapons. Many donned powered exoskeletons that enhanced their strength and speed, while others prepared defensive positions with practiced efficiency. Your people seem well prepared for direct combat, Verix noted. The Teslarians evolved away from physical conflict thousands of cycles ago. Our defensive technologies are largely automated. Lieutenant Park nodded as they reached a heavily reinforced doorway. Different evolutionary paths. Humans had to fight for every step of our advancement. Against nature, against each other, and now against threats from the stars. The secure command bunker was a smaller version of the main combat information center, staffed by a skeleton crew monitoring all ship functions. Through the view screens, Verix could see the battle continuing outside. The human ships had adapted to the swarm's new tactics, adjusting their formation to protect each other's vulnerable sections while maintaining devastating firepower. A holographic display showed the interior of the ship, with red indicators marking the locations where swarm boarding constructs had attached. Security teams were engaging the invaders in close-quarters combat throughout several decks. Commander Reed, Verix asked through the communication system, your people willingly fight these creatures directly. Without automated defenses, automated systems can be hacked or corrupted. Ilara's voice replied as she directed the defense from the main bridge. The swarm can adapt to predictable patterns. Human unpredictability is our advantage. Verix watched in horrified fascination as helmet camera feeds showed human soldiers engaging the swarm warriors. Insectoid nightmares with razor-sharp appendages and acid-secreting mouthparts. The humans fought with a combination of advanced technology and primitive ferocity, using energy weapons alongside bladed implements for close combat. Your species is remarkably adept at warfare, Verix observed. We've had plenty of practice, replied Lieutenant Park grimly. Before we reached the stars, we spent thousands of years fighting each other. World wars, civil conflicts, insurgencies. When the Scourge attacked our colonies, we already knew how to fight. We just needed to adapt our tactics. This revelation stunned Verix. The Teslarians had assumed that any species advanced enough to achieve faster-than-light travel would have evolved beyond violent conflict, as they had. The idea that humans had brought their warlike tendencies with them into space was both disturbing and, in their current situation, oddly reassuring. Lieutenant, Verix said carefully, the Teslarian Confederation has enjoyed 5,000 cycles of peace before the Void Swarm first appeared. We had forgotten how to fight. When they came, we nearly perished as a species. Park nodded grimly. Different paths, like I said. Maybe that's why we're here now, to help each other where we're weak. The ship shuddered again as another impact struck the hull. The holographic display showed that most of the boarding parties had been contained, but at a cost. Dozens of human crew members were marked as wounded or killed in action. Such sacrifice, murmured Verix, his skin pulsing with patterns of respect and grief. For a colony not even your own. We protect our own, Park replied simply. And right now, that includes you and your people. 6 hours later, the combined human and Teslarian forces had pushed back the Void Swarm's assault. The human vessels had suffered significant damage. 2 of their smaller ships had been destroyed, though most of their crews had been evacuated, but they had held the line long enough for the Teslarian defense fleet to arrive and complete the evacuation of New Lumina. Aboard the Stellar Harmony, Grand Archon Seleth hosted Admiral Karev and Commander Reed in the council chamber. The human officers looked weary but composed, their uniforms showing signs of the battle they had just fought. "Admiral, Commander," Seleth began, her skin glowing with formal gratitude patterns, "the Teslarian Confederation owes you and your crews an immense debt. Without your intervention, New Lumina would have been lost entirely, along with all its citizens." Admiral Karev nodded formally. "We're glad we could help, Grand Archon. The Scourge, your Void Swarm, is a threat to all sentient life. We've been fighting them alone for too long. Yet you concealed your military capabilities from us," noted Defense Coordinator Varix, though his tone held curiosity rather than accusation. "When we first encountered your diplomatic vessels, we believed humans to be significantly less advanced." Commander Reed smiled slightly. "First Contact Protocol 7B, Coordinator. When encountering a previously unknown spacefaring civilization, present minimal military presence to avoid provoking defensive responses." "A wise approach," acknowledged Elder Counselor Torin. "Though perhaps unnecessary with the Teslarians. We have long since moved beyond warfare amongst ourselves." "With respect, Counselor," Admiral Karev said carefully, "humanity learned caution the hard way. We've had our own first contact scenarios go poorly." This revelation sent ripples of surprise through the gathered Teslarians. "You've encountered other intelligent species?" asked Science Elder Mirithi eagerly. "3 before the Teslarians," confirmed Karev. "1 became allies. 1 attempted to conquer us. The 3rd, well, the 3rd is why we developed those quantum disruptors you saw in action today." A heavy silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. The galaxy was evidently more dangerous than the Teslarians had believed during their millennia of peaceful exploration. "It seems we have much to learn from each other," Seleth finally said. "Your people possess military technologies and tactical knowledge that might help us defend against the Void Swarm's return. And perhaps we can offer technological and cultural insights that would benefit humanity in return." Admiral Karev nodded. "That was our hope from the beginning, Grand Archon. An alliance benefits us both." Science Elder Merithi leaned forward, her skin pulsing with scholarly excitement. "Your phase-shifted quantum disruptors. They operate on principles similar to our harmonic disruption technology, but far more efficiently. A fusion of our approaches could yield even more effective defenses." "And your crystalline hull technology," Commander Reed added, "could significantly enhance our ship's structural integrity while reducing mass." As the conversation continued, the foundations of a true alliance began to form, one built on mutual respect and complementary strengths. The Teslarians offered their advanced materials science, sustainable energy systems, and millennia of peaceful diplomacy experience with dozens of other species. The humans contributed their military expertise, adaptable tactics, and the hard-won lessons of a species that had survived its own violent nature to reach the stars. Before departing, Admiral Karev presented Grand Archon Seleth with a data crystal containing Earth's historical and cultural archives, including its long, complicated history of warfare and conflict, but also its art, music, literature, and philosophy. "We want you to understand us," Karev explained. "All of us. Not just the diplomatic face we first presented." Seleth accepted the crystal with a formal gesture of honor. "And we shall share our history with you as well, Admiral, though I warn you, 5,000 cycles of peaceful scientific advancement may seem rather uneventful compared to humanity's colorful past." Karev smiled. "Sometimes uneventful is exactly what we're fighting for, Grand Archon." As the human delegation prepared to depart, Commander Reed approached Defense Coordinator Varix. "Your evacuation protocols saved thousands of lives today, Coordinator. Impressive organization under pressure." "And your warriors saved all of us," Varix replied, his skin glowing with the patterns of deep respect. "I've updated our historical archives to reflect what I witnessed aboard your vessel. Future generations of Teslarians should know that when darkness threatened to consume us, humanity stood as our silent guardians." Reed nodded thoughtfully. "Silent guardians. I like that." Though perhaps, Varix added with a ripple of color that translated as wry humor, "not quite so silent when the fighting starts." As the human ships departed, Grand Arkanselith stood on the observation deck, watching their distinctive silhouettes until they vanished into faster-than-light travel. The Teslarian Confederation had existed for thousands of cycles, building a society based on peace, scientific advancement, and harmony. Now they had encountered a species that had taken a very different path to the stars, one forged in conflict yet tempered with compassion. "Silent guardians," she murmured, repeating Varix's phrase. Perhaps that was humanity's role in the galaxy, carrying the burden of warfare so others might know peace. It was a sobering thought, but also a hopeful one. The stars seemed different now, both more dangerous and more full of promise than before. Whatever came next, the Teslarians would face it with new allies at their side, unexpected protectors who had learned to fight so that others might not have to. And in the vast darkness between stars, the Void Swarm retreated, but not for long. They would return, as they always did, hungry and relentless. But next time, they would face a united response, the wisdom of the ancient Teslarians combined with humanity's indomitable warrior spirit. The galaxy would never be the same again.